Where the heck is my skateboard? Fart. It's possible you didn't know this about me. I have 2 motorcycles. Neither one of which actually work. I'm looking for my skateboard because right now I have 2 bikes at the shop and I don't want to have another one there. So I wanted to take my skateboard in so I could bring a bike home, but it's proving more difficult. Found it. Ever misplaced something and you're like, it's everybody else's fault but mine? And then when you find it, you realize that it was totally you. Yeah, that's what happened this morning. See, having 2 bikes at the store just doesn't make sense. I had to skateboard today because I have this bike that I really don't feel comfortable riding right now, and this bike here. I can't have 3 bikes here, that just doesn't make sense. I also wish there was better lighting in here because it's annoying when I want to go to a bunch of different spots and then you can't really see anything. Over there is the best place to be, but it's always a mess. When I was starting to get into other types of riding other than BMX, I'm sure most of you already know this, but I was trying to do everything as absolutely cheap as possible and make as many things work together as I can. I know we all do this. We all try and have one bike that we can do everything with. And we try and get that one bike that we can do everything with for the least amount of money as possible. And if you go to my first video that I ever put on YouTube, that is my example of my do every single thing I can for as cheap as possible bike. Now, it wasn't my only bike at the time, however, it was my first cyclocross bike. All it was a hybrid that I converted to a drop bar bike and put some cross tires on. Now, I bring this up because there's a bike here that's actually kind of interesting. It's not interesting for any other reason than the fact that it has cyclocross tires on it, but it isn't a cyclocross bike. The next thing I find interesting about it is it was the bike that I wanted to build, but ended up building the Apollo instead because the Apollo was cheaper. But I was always curious what one of these would look like in person with a cyclocross tire on it. And basically, to stop keeping you in suspense, I'll just show you. This right here is a Specialized Diverge A1 Sport from 2015, equipped with what Michelin says are 30mm cyclocross mud tires. They are liars, they measure 35. Now, the thing that excites me about this build, like I said earlier, is the fact that this is what I wanted to get into cyclocross with. I wanted to have a bike that I could road ride, but have room for a bigger tire, and really just kind of dip my feet into the world of cyclocross. I kind of had a good feeling that I knew I was going to love it, but I didn't know if I wanted to take the chance. I didn't know if I wanted to like dump a bunch of money into a bike that was going to be specific to the sport, or if I wanted something that I could just try it a little bit, and if it didn't work out, I could use it as any other type of road bike. Of course, it's not going to be perfect for it, but it does allow you to give it a try. Now, of course, there's going to be a ton of drawbacks to something like this. And that's not what this bike is put together for. It just so happens to have a bigger cyclocross tire on it. But basically what you run into, when you get in between the chainstays and in between the seat stays, there really isn't a whole lot of extra room in there for mud clearance. Mud clearance ends up being a really big problem if you're in a particularly sticky, muddy course. Not to mention, the geometry of this bike just doesn't necessarily lend itself to the demands of a cyclocross course. It's also really low here because of the incredibly compact road design, which makes it sort of difficult to be shouldering while running up some stairs or anything. But for someone who's just going to be trying cross with their adventure bike that they have, it's really not going to be the biggest drawback. I did my first season of cyclocross on a road bike. I put a cyclocross fork in it, and I tried to make it work the best I could. Mud built up like mad on the rear caliper. The biggest tire I could fit was a 28, and I had a 33 up front. Not to mention, the bike was a 58, and I'm supposed to be riding a 54. That was easily the cheapest way for me to get into the sport, and no, I loved it. Next step was getting something that was a little more appropriate for the job, and then I made the plunge. Into an actual cyclocross bike. Maybe that like middle of the road step didn't need to happen, but it did create a really good commuter bike. Okay, so long story short here is, if you went out and you bought a gravel bike or an adventure bike, and you're like, oh, shit, I kind of want to try cyclocross, but you're kind of like caught up in the fact that your bike has that adventure bike title, don't worry about that. Just fit the biggest tire in that you can with a bit of tread and go try racing. Don't worry so much that the bike isn't specific to cyclocross racing, because in the beginning, that doesn't matter. It's not going to be the thing that holds you back. In my opinion, the bike you've got is the right bike. Sometimes I feel like it's maybe not like fair for me to make that argument because I have so many bikes that are specific to a bunch of stuff. But like, I did all that over time. It's been 4 years of building up over bikes and being associated with this shop and just building the amount of bikes that I have. So if you were to know me in the beginning, you would have seen me kind of go through all that. Where right now it's easy for me to say, don't worry about the type of bike you're riding, just use the one you've got and see if you like it. Because I've got so many bikes. But trust me, in the beginning, I didn't. And I just used what I had, made it work, and if I liked it, put a bit of money aside so that I could get myself the proper bike. It's a little bit dark and a little bit raining, so done.